What's going on, guys, and welcome to What If Deku Had Mastered Ultra Instinct. If you've already watched every part of this What If, then go ahead and comment down below if you would like a longer version of this movie or what ifs you're excited to see. Outside of that, this is for those who really just want a full movie and don't want to click from video to video. Again, if you enjoy the What If, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment, like, and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. Now, before we start, I need to break down the rules of his quirk. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, Ultra Instinct is basically the fact that Deku can move his body without consciously thinking about it, right? So if he's in danger, it just moves. That is the base of Ultra Instinct. Now, the step above that is what we call Ultra Instinct Omen or Sign. That is a step above, giving Deku he's faster, he's stronger, he can perceive more, and overall, just a power up from what he normally is in his base. The step above that is called Mastered Ultra Instinct. This form is purely when everything has been perfected. I mean his instincts, I mean to how he moves, everything down to a T. He's so much stronger, so much faster, and the feats he can do are definitely All Might level, if not more. What you'll find throughout this What If is that if Deku does too much, his body will cramp, it'll tense up, but overall, there aren't too many crazy drawbacks, obviously, because this quirk is more of a transformation as things go on. With all of that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. Again, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Let me know what stories you want to see in the future, and let's get into it. We start the story with a 3-year-old Izuku Midoriya in his bedroom watching his favorite clip of All Might as he saves a large number of civilians. He shoulders their fears and smiles through the danger. The light from his monitor covers Deku's face as he leans in closer and closer. Deku's eyes open wider as he yells alongside the #1 hero of Japan, "I am here." We cut to a now 4-year-old Deku as he kicks his feet in a doctor's office. He turns to his mom, Inko, asking, "So what do you think my quirk will be?" Deku jumps from the chair and runs around the room. "Maybe I'll be able to breathe fire, or move things with my mind, or maybe I'll be able to fly." Inko smiles as she tells Deku that whatever it is, it's going to be cool. When the doctor walks in, Deku runs back to his chair. "I'm ready," he shouts. The doctor tells Deku that he needs to talk to his mom before they begin. As Inko and the doctor talk in the hallway, the doctor begins to explain to her that based on Deku's x-rays, he potentially won't have a quirk due to having 2 joints in his pinky toe. Upon hearing this, Inko begs the doctor to still run a test, but to still give him hope, to tell him that he's a late bloomer, potentially. He's always wanted to be a hero. The doctor and Inko re-enter the room as he says, "All right, young man, are you ready?" with a face full of excitement. As Izuku carries out every test the doctor can think of, Izuku begins to realize that he might be quirkless. A feeling far worse than sadness comes over him as the doctor even makes up tests that make Izuku kind of feel better, but still he feels hopeless. And in truth, these extra tests only make him feel worse. When the doctor realizes that the light has left Izuku's eyes, he gets down on one knee and tells Izuku that the greatest quirks take time to develop, and that his body still might need time to adapt. In the meantime, why not try martial arts? The doctor looks at Inko and tells her that his niece is becoming a martial artist to become a hero under the pro hero gunhead. Inko looks at Izuku, who's hiding his face. He tells the doctor, "We'll think about it, and thanks for everything." As Izuku and Inko walk back to their car, Inko tries to speak with Izuku, but he ignores her. As the car comes into view across the street, Izuku runs forward, not noticing the light hadn't turned red yet. As he steps into the road, a car would come around the corner at an extremely high speed, trying to escape a hero. The driver, noticing Izuku, would refuse to slow down. Inko notices the vehicle, but it's too late. Her screams can't reach Deku as he's disassociated from the world around him. Deku, to his feet from the oncoming car, and onlookers have turned away to avoid the inevitable. The street is filled with silence, but not because Deku was hit. In fact, the car, Deku, and the hero chasing the car are gone. Back to the driver, who is now shocked to see that the kid he was so okay with hitting is now blocking his view. Deku is sitting on the hood of a speeding car as if he had climbed onto it. Once he notices, he begins to freak out until a branch would grab onto him, placing him on the ground. Now a block away from his mom, he looks into the air as the pro hero Kamui Woods completely stops the vehicle. Inko, driving at full speed in her car, would stop as she noticed Deku sitting on a bench. As she ran over to Izuku planning to chew him out for what he did, she begins to cry and hugs him tightly. Later that night, Inko finds Izuku in his All Might hoodie crying as he watches his favorite video of All Might. He asks his mom, "Can I be your hero too?" Inko doesn't know what to say as she continues to replay the events of the day over and over in her head. They didn't even see him move, she would think. The next morning, as Inko would drop Deku off at school, she would ask him how he got on the hood of the car. Not to her surprise, her 4-year-old son says, "I don't know." Of course you don't, she thinks. Throughout the school day, Izuku gets teased by the other kids for being quirkless until Bakugo and his squad come up to bully Izuku. They laugh at him, and it's here that Bakugo calls Izuku a Deku and tells him to jump off the roof for a better chance at a quirk in his next life. Hearing this, Izuku once again closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and disassociates from the world, pretending everything is quiet and that no one or nothing is around. When Bakugo sees that he's being ignored, he goes to punch Deku, but Deku slips past his hand, causing Bakugo to almost fall. One of the other kids yell at Izuku as they throw an eraser at him, but he dodges this too. Bakugo, now annoyed, says, "You think you're better than us, Deku?" To this, Deku opens his eyes and says in a low, nonchalant voice, "I thought you wanted to be a hero, Kachan." Bakugo balls up his fist, builds up the strongest explosion he can at his age, but before he can do anything, the teacher stops him and sends him to the principal's office. When Deku's mom picks him up, she asked how was school. Deku replies by saying, "Being quirkless sucks." Inko doesn't know what to say and decides to tell him that it won't be long. Little does she know, she's right. That night, as she and Deku put away clean dishes, Inko slips as she places a mug on a high shelf. Although she catches herself, the mug is headed straight for Izuku's head. As Izuku is down below wiping off a fork with a cloth, he would reach up and grab the mug just before it hits him. "Izuku, how did you..." I don't know. It just kind of felt like I should have grabbed it. Both of their eyes would grow in excitement as they realized that this could be it. This could be his quirk. The next day, Inko would call Deku's school to let them know he'd be out as they revisit the doctor's office. As they explain everything to the doctor, he would run several tests on Deku based on what they told him, down to even throwing foam objects at Deku. But no matter how much they tried, Deku couldn't get the ability to work. Instead of ruling it out as a lucky catch, the doctor says maybe it needs to be in a case of danger. In that moment, Inko tells the doctor that Deku once jumped onto a car going 80 miles an hour before it hit him. The doctor would spit out his coffee hearing this. That's definitely unsafe. The doctor would sit looking at his notes that he's taken. He can avoid low to extreme levels of danger unconsciously. Wait, that might be his quirk. It's the ultimate instinct. No, it needs a cooler name than that. Deku, thinking about All Might, would say, "Ultra." All right, young man, I like that. Let's give your quirk a name fitting to be a hero. Ultra Instinct. The next day at school, Deku would share with everyone that he has a quirk. Everyone would be excited for Deku except Bakugo. "Yeah, what's it called?" "It's called Ultra Instinct." All the kids would go, "Whoa, that's so cool. Use it right now." "I can't," Deku would say. Bakugo would laugh and tell him, "Nice try. But if you can't use your quirk when you want, you're still useless." Deku would look sad at first until his sadness turns to anger. He would push Bakugo and tell him that all he can do is blow things up. How can you save someone if all your quirk can do is destroy things? Immediately, Deku and Bakugo would begin to fight, pushing chairs and tables out of the way in the middle of the room. Bakugo, being a little stronger than Deku, would push him down and prepare a small explosion to Deku, who hasn't noticed. The kids around Bakugo, including the teacher who just ran into the class, would tell him to wait. But again, it's too late. The explosion is headed for Deku, but for a brief moment, Deku's hair would rise and his eyes would turn to a cold silver as he slips out of the way and pushes Bakugo. But this wasn't just any push. It was more than a simple instinct. Deku had activated something that shocked the entire class, including Bakugo, who was pushed back with amazing force. Bakugo hits the wall, and for a moment he sees Deku transformed, then beginning to feel the wall that's around him. "How did I get over here?" he would think. "There's no way this loser pushed me this far from the middle of the classroom." It's here we have a time skip to a now 15-year-old Deku who hasn't been able to activate his quirk since then due to not being in any danger. The only times he's truly felt untouchable is in school games like dodgeball, tag, or if he randomly tripped while walking. Deku is walking home on his usual route after school, thinking of ways to use his quirk without needing to be in danger, when suddenly, the manhole next to him shoots into the air as a sludge villain jumps out. "Sorry, kid, but All Might is after me and I need a new body." Deku's heart rate increases as the villain reaches out with his sludge to grab him, but right before he can reach his arm, Deku moves it. "Stop moving," the villain yells as he goes for several grabs at Deku's feet, head, hands, arms, anything he can grab. But Deku is seamlessly and effortlessly dodging everything. The more the villain chases him, the more Deku yells at himself to move, 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 don't die, move body, come on. Eventually both Deku and the sludge villain stop and just stare at each other. Deku is breathing heavily, but so is the sludge villain. Why can't I grab this kid? Thinks to himself. While in Deku's mind, he's doing his best to catch his breath and calm his mind. Deku has had a lot of time to reflect back to the time he pushed Bakugo and decides that now is the best time to test his theory about his quirk. He takes a deep breath in, calms his mind, and when he opens his eyes, the villain is right in front of him, ready to grab him. Deku's hair lifts, and his eyes are now that cool, calm silver like before. Deku, now an Ultra Instinct sign, steps aside as the villain flies past him. "Stop moving!" the villain yells. But this outburst is what led All Might right to him. "I am here," is the one phrase that snaps Deku out of his transformation as a gust of wind blows the sludge villain to pieces. As Deku turns around to see the one and only All Might. "Are you okay, young man?" Deku can't even speak and just stares at the #1 hero. All Might, feeling awkward due to the deer in headlights look from Izuku, clears his throat and says, "Don't worry, young man, you're safe now." After All Might collects the sludge villain who yells, "You and this kid are both freaks," Deku approaches him with his hero notebook and asks him to sign it. Since Bakugo stopped bothering Deku after that day in elementary school, Deku hasn't had to deal with much bullying. All Might signs Deku's notebook and turns to leave. But before he goes, he asks Deku how he was able to fight the sludge villain at such a young age. This question snaps Deku out of his All Might trance. Deku, looking up at the #1 hero, and tells him all about his quirk. "What's it called?" All Might asks. "Ultra Instinct," Deku yells. All Might smiles as he turns around. It's a fine name for a hero. Deku's eyes light up as All Might squats down low and leaps into the air. Back in middle school, the teacher announces where all of the students will be heading off to for high school. Bakugo tells the class that he's going to be the greatest hero ever. "You're so cool," the kids say to Bakugo. The teacher then looks to Izuku and says, "Izuku, you want to go to UA too, right? You and Bakugo will become great heroes together." Bakugo sends a death stare over to Deku, but Deku ignores him. When Deku gets home, he runs past his mom who's making dinner and heads straight to his room. He tosses down his backpack, changes into something more comfortable, and runs right back out the door. "I'll be home for dinner, going to the beach," he says. "No girls," Inko replies. When Izuku gets to the beach, he sits down in an area that has no trash and begins to meditate, listening to the waves hit the shore, the wind that blows through his hair, and the birds nearby. So peaceful, he thinks to himself. For the next 10 months, Izuku would spend his time meditating, working out, and eventually taking a martial arts class, all in preparation for the entrance exams. The 10 months fly by and Izuku has spent more time training than anything else. While he trained at the beach, he also decided to clean it, and now all of the trash can be found in one overly organized pile. To this day, no one knows who lifted fridges, washing machines, countless semi-truck tires, and even a rusted old car that's now upside down. After acing the written portion of the entrance exam, Deku changes and makes his way to the practical exam. While there, all the other kids begin to look at him and talk amongst themselves. He didn't realize that he would draw so much attention, but then again, he is a bit taller and has more of an athletic build. Over a loudspeaker, President Nezu tells all the kids to make their way in as the massive metal gate begins to open. Inside, the kids are all bunched up as they look around the giant city. One kid yells, "Look!" as a large number of green robots can be seen moving around. Deku notices that they all have different numbers on them and begins to think to himself, point values. After President Nezu explains the rules, confirming Deku's suspicions, he yells, "Good luck, students. Please begin." As students run past Deku and begin destroying several robots around him, he closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. The noise around him begins to sound less like chaos and more like waves, wind, and birds. As he opens his eyes, we see flashbacks of the past 10 months of training. Him going in and out of Ultra Instinct Omen, moving big pieces of trash, moving at high speeds, punching a big metal box truck across the beach while an Ultra Instinct sign, and even him spending every day in the form for as long as he could. His hair begins to float as he opens his eyes, revealing a deeper silver. A warm, light blue aura begins to surround him as steam seeps from his body. The form isn't perfect, but it's the result of his 10 months of training. Up in the teacher's lounge, the pro heroes Midnight, Eraserhead, and Present Mike feel a shift in the air, a dense, warm pressure. They all get up and run over to the glass to look out into the man-made battlefield. Eraserhead looks to his left. You feel it too, huh? It's the #1 hero, All Might, just staring down at Izuku, recognizing the boy who might have not needed saving that day. Deku takes a single step forward, breaking the ground beneath him as he presses the ball of his foot into the earth. He sinks deeper and deeper until he presses off, disappearing from even the pro hero's eyes. While flying through the air, the force of Deku's speed destroys one-pointers as he passes them. The pro heroes and teachers say nothing as they keep track with his flying body. Deku locks eyes with his target, a group of three-pointers that haven't even detected him yet. He clenches his fist, cocks it back, leans forward, and almost looking like he's flying, yells a phrase that All Might can't ignore. Smash. The ground erupts as parts of various robots with different point values are sent flying throughout the training grounds. The location of Deku's punch creating an intense gust of wind that pushes students and robots alike away. Above the cloud of dust, a three-pointer flies straight up, leaving a trail of dust and debris behind it. Following the robot comes Deku, leaping above it, steam seeping from his body. All Might takes note of that, thinking it's familiar to his own physical shortcomings. With everything slowed down in the air, Deku looks around for another group of robots. He spots some. While he's not paying attention, the robot below him in the air takes a chance to try and hit him. Deku dodges without looking. Spinning in the air, Deku throws a kick that shatters the robot's defenses, sending parts of it everywhere. This sends the robot straight down to the group of robots he spotted earlier. That should be enough points to get in, Deku thinks to himself, falling right back into the dissipating dust cloud he caused as he disappears from everyone's view, including the robots. Deku runs and hides in a storage building between two massive crates. His hair immediately drops as his body begins to cramp, tense, and burn. This is a sensation he hasn't been able to get rid of ever since the 10 months of training. I guess I'm not strong enough yet. Back in the teacher's lounge, the pro heroes are still standing in awe at what they just witnessed. He reminds me of you, All Might, President Nezu says. All Might says nothing and sits down. He knows Deku used up a lot of his stamina with those two attacks, but still, that was impressive. Deku rests in his hiding spot for a while until he hears a loud horn begin to blare. The zero-pointer has arrived, President Mike yells. Deku's confident he passed and decides to make his way to the exit. But right when he's about to run in the opposite direction, he hears a scream. Help, someone says. He turns back to see Ochako. He's already used up too much energy and doesn't think he can take down something of that size. She'll be fine, he thinks to himself as he turns, but it only takes one step for him to change his mind. In that moment, he can't control his body. He turns and runs towards her. The pro heroes and teachers watch in silence as Deku stares down the zero-pointer. Come on, young man, All Might says out loud. Deku's heart rate begins to raise as he starts to doubt himself. Will he make it in time? Should he save her or destroy the robot? Can he even do either one? Is his power made for saving? He's never had to activate it by force with such high stakes, but she's about to be stepped on. Come on, body, move! He yells at himself, closes his eyes, but he can no longer hear the beach, only fear and screams of kids as they run away. Deku squats, takes the biggest breath in that he can, and begins to push as much as he can. He doesn't know what he's pushing or what muscle he's squeezing, but he knows that he needs something, anything in his body. Nothing seems to be happening, and he begins to scream. Steam hotter than before begins to rise off of his body as his scream turns into a bellow. His hair rises, and his aura returns as a chaotic mix of light and dark blue light. The pressure and steam is so powerful, it's almost as if a monster has taken over his body. Deku squats down even lower, looks up at the zero-pointer and disappears once again. This time, not punching it away or blowing it up, but trying to tackle it, pushing it back as far as he can. With every push, he lands back on the ground and pushes up again, jumping up and down, creating a deeper and deeper dent. Ochako has already been saved, but Deku isn't paying attention, nor is he in control. When the robot is far enough away, Deku cocks back his fist with everything he has. President Mike begins to say the test is complete, but Deku isn't done. With the last of his strength, he punches the zero-pointer into the air, sending it crashing to the ground. He passes out. Deku wakes up next to Recovery Girl and Inko. He's been out for 2 whole days, and Deku begins to freak out and starts to ramble about the test. He thinks he failed. Recovery Girl tells Deku to calm down and tells him that she's never seen anyone like him, except for All Might. You'll get in, kid. You saved that girl. You're a real hero. We skip to Deku receiving the letter in the mail, and he's surprised to find out that the one inviting him to the school is the #1 hero, All Might. Deku arrives for his first day of school, and upon opening the door, he sees Bakugo arguing with Ida. Once Bakugo sees Deku walk in, he takes his feet off the desk, getting Ida to leave him alone. Look who actually made it. I don't have time for this, Bakugo, Deku says. He walks past Bakugo and sits down next to the girl he saved. Ochako looks over and notices and says, hey, you're... But before she can talk, here comes Bakugo. He marches over to Deku until Aizawa sits up in his sleeping bag. That's enough. Put your uniforms on and meet me outside. The students arrive on a baseball field where Aizawa tells them that they are going to throw this ball as far as they can so that he can measure their current capabilities. He looks at Deku and tells him to throw it with everything he has, tossing him the ball. As Deku walks past Aizawa to the pitching mound, he leans in towards him and says, "Don't hold back, kid." Deku closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. His hair begins to rise as his eyes open. Everyone is in awe of the pressure and heat they're feeling, including Bakugo. Deku steps back, cocks his arm, and throws the ball as far as he can. It goes 5,100 meters. Aizawa tells them that that is their goal, and then to go beyond. Bakugo is shocked, especially after he only throws at 705.2 meters. He approaches Deku and tries to grab him, but Deku moves instantly. "What the hell was that, Deku? I've been training my ass off. Why are you that strong?" With Bakugo getting too aggressive towards Deku, Aizawa approaches him and tells him to calm down or else. Deku passes the rest of the test with ease and comes in first, followed up by Todoroki, Bakugo, and somehow Mineta. While at home, Deku continues to work on transforming without needing to be at peace or think of the beach. He's getting close, but it's still too forceful and painful. A few days later, Aizawa tells them that they are going to have a practical test. That's when All Might would push open the door and yell, "I am here." The kids freak out as Aizawa tells them that they will be pairing off to fight another duo. This test is meant to test their ability to handle potential villains and get to the objective. One team will be heroes, the other will be villains. You can either capture the enemy, defeat them, or place one hand on the villain group's bomb. Deku and Ochako get paired together and are going against Bakugo and Ida, the villains. Before the match begins, Deku tells Ochako that she should wait because Bakugo will rush him. She asks if he'll be okay, to which he replies, "Of course." When the match begins, Bakugo tells Ida to stay back and not to get in his way. Using his explosions, he flies off to find Deku. Deku runs through the halls, making his way up flights of stairs, but just as he turns the corner to head to the next floor, a light begins to glow right next to his head. It's warm and gradually grows in heat. It's Bakugo. Deku immediately leans back while the explosion goes off right in front of him. "Are you trying to take my head off?" Hearing this, Bakugo laughs and says, "Come on, we both know you would have dodged." "But what if I didn't?" Deku responds. The young men stare at each other. All Might watches, staring closely at Deku as he notices that steam begins to rise off of his body. "Fine, Bakugo. You want this? Let's go." Bakugo dashes at Deku as his hair begins to rise. Bakugo notices that this time he didn't close his eyes or take a deep breath like before. Something's different. Deku dodges him by ducking straight down. This enrages Bakugo. "So you don't need your power to beat me, huh? Is that what you think? That you're better than me?" Deku tells Bakugo to get over himself, and Bakugo dashes at Deku and even blitzes him at different times, but no matter what he does, he can't land a hit on Deku. With every swing, with every kick, with every explosion, Deku bobs, weaves, ducks, almost seeming untouchable. The students are impressed watching as Deku dodges Bakugo easily. Bakugo grits his teeth. "You like moving around so much? Fine." He grabs his gauntlet, slides his hand up to the pin, and puts his hand right in Deku's face as he pulls it. All Might shouts no, but it's too late. As Bakugo pulls the pin, the explosion can be heard from where the students and All Might are. Bakugo stands in the hallway in silence, clenching his arm as it throbs in pain. Right before All Might calls the match, Momo yells, "Look!" Deku is already behind Bakugo. He tries to take a step and turn around to face Deku, but it's too late. He looks down to see that his arms are already surrounded in capture tape. His face drops in fear, but Deku says nothing and heads off towards Ida. As Deku heads up the stairs, Ida sees Deku coming, but suddenly Ochako floats through the window next to him. They're both rushing him. Ida freezes up, and Deku and Ochako reach the bomb at the same time. "Hero team wins," All Might shouts. The kids go crazy. The other students explode. When Deku returns, the students surround him and ask him how he's so strong. What is his quirk? How does this work? Meanwhile, Deku looks to the left to see Aizawa has pulled Bakugo aside to discipline him. Some time goes by before Deku and his classmates are put on a bus and head towards the USJ for some training. When they arrive, Aizawa and Pro Hero 13 tell them that they will be doing some special training to hone their bodies and quirks. Before they begin walking down the stairs, a purple portal surrounded by mist begins to form. "Professor, is this one of the tests for today?" "Not at all," Aizawa says. Aizawa leaps in front of the students, while out of the portal comes Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and a giant Nomu. And next to them, a large amount of criminals and villains alike. Before 13 can help the students escape, Kurogiri separates them, sending the students through different portals to different parts of the USJ. All except for one, Deku. When the portal began to form under Deku, he was able to sense it coming and moved out of the way. leaving him standing next to Aizawa and a fallen 13 who was injured by Kurogiri in the mix-up. Aizawa and Deku lock eyes as Aizawa tells him that only this once will he permit him to use his quirk without a license, if and only if it comes down to it. Deku nods. For now, stand back. Aizawa begins to take down several villains who do their best to attack them both, but he's too quick, too strong. He's making it look almost effortless. A few villains try to sneak up on Deku from behind him, but he bobs and weaves and dodges everything. Aizawa looks back and tells him to fight back, and he does so. Not using Ultra Instinct Sign yet, he takes out 3 of the closest villains before slowly turning on his form by force. With his strength, speed, and perception increased, he dashes next to Aizawa, helping him take down the rest of the criminals in the area. This pisses off the already agitated Shigaraki, who orders the Nomu to kill Aizawa. The Nomu moves so fast that Aizawa was caught off guard. He tries to cancel the Nomu's quirk, but it doesn't work. The Nomu punches Aizawa right into the ground, breaking it, but also causing him to bounce off of the ground before kicking him away. Aizawa hits a wall and doesn't seem to be moving. Kurogiri begins to open a portal next to a distracted Deku, but Deku once again in his sign form senses it and appears right next to Kurogiri, blitzing him, his hand right in his face. Delivering a massive punch to his metal plate, Deku knocks him out. Deku turns back to face Aizawa, who is now about to be punched once again by the Nomu, and decides it's time to kick it up a notch. He begins to force his body to give him everything it has and lets out a nasty bellow. Shigaraki and even Nomu feel the intense heat and pressure and begin to face Deku, but it's too late. When the Nomu turns around, Deku's gone, all of a sudden feeling a sensation of a force in his stomach. The Nomu looks down, but sees Deku's foot digging into his gut, causing the Nomu to cave in. Deku releases a sidekick so furious that the sound of the Nomu being sent flying reminds Aizawa of a punch from All Might. Immediately, the Nomu gets up and darts at Deku from across the USJ. Deku knows that kick took a lot out of him, but there's no time to think. He and the Nomu begin to clash, Deku's Ultra Instinct Sign still not being mature enough to seamlessly dodge every attack. With every punch the Nomu throws at Deku, Deku almost falls off balance. The Nomu's too quick, it's too strong, and it's beginning to get used to Deku's Ultra Instinct. Aizawa thinks to himself, Deku can't keep this up. But although Deku isn't dodging too well, the blows he's dealing are still fight-ending blows, but unfortunately, the Nomu is regenerating and absorbing the shock. A creature loaded with quirks that makes it practically unstoppable, that's also created to kill All Might. This is basically an impossible fight for a kid who just turned 15. More and more steam comes off of Deku as he bellows and bellows, letting out louder and louder screams, until consciously, he accidentally dodges in the wrong direction. Not able to rely on Ultra Instinct, here it happens. For the first time in his life, he's hit. And worst of all, it's by a punch from a creature that was created and designed to kill the #1 hero, All Might. The Nomu punches Deku square in the chest, sending him flying through the air like a ragdoll, with the only thing potentially saving him from death being the water he's about to fall into and him using Ultra Instinct Sign at its max, adjusting his body at the very last second. Deku splashes into the water below, barely holding on to consciousness. Shigaraki laughs as he directs a Nomu back at Aizawa once again. Aizawa stands, preparing for his last fight. Back to Deku. It's quiet as he sinks deeper into the water. No chaos, no conflict, just stillness. He closes his eyes for what feels like an eternity. Deku! Deku! A raspy, unpleasant voice yells. He slightly opens his eyes to Bakugo, who has taken off his gauntlets and has pulled him out of the water. Not that much time has passed, but it's evident that he's missed quite a bit. Bakugo? Shut up. Don't talk, loser, or you'll die. Deku looks over to see that Aizawa is on the ground, bloodied, but not dead. He's using his quirk on the Nomu to reduce its healing factor, but why? He looks to his left and sees a battered All Might, clothes ripped off and blood on his side where his injury is. He watches as All Might clashes with the Nomu. All Might punches faster and faster until for a moment he braces his back, clenches his fist, and yells, "You may have heard these words before, but I'll teach you what they really mean. Go beyond. Plus Ultra." All Might buries his fist deep into the Nomu's gut, similar to Deku, forcing it to cave in once again, and with blinding speed, the Nomu is sent crashing through the roof of the USJ and disappears. Shigaraki begins scratching his neck, screaming that this shouldn't be possible. This wasn't supposed to happen. He turns to Deku and Bakugo and rushes them. "It's your fault," he says to Deku. He reaches out to decay Deku and even Bakugo, but a bullet flies through his hand and torso. It's pro-hero Snipe. The heroes have arrived. Out of nowhere, a gray sludge begins to cover Shigaraki and Kurogiri as they're teleported away. "I'll be back for you," says Shigaraki at Deku. Cementos quickly puts up a wall around All Might, hiding his true form from everyone. Deku and all the injured students are rushed off to the hospital in UA, while the villains are taken into custody. Deku looks over at Bakugo. "Thanks for saving me, hero," before passing out. Bakugo stares at an unconscious Deku and smiles. "Whatever, nerd." A few days later, Deku wakes up in the hospital with Inko next to him. She gives him a big hug and tells him that she doesn't think that UA is the safest place for him anymore. Before he can respond, the door to his room opens. It's Aizawa and All Might. "Excuse me, but we need to speak to young Midoriya." Inko leaves with tears in her eyes, and Aizawa begins to thank Deku for stalling the Nomu. He asks how he's feeling. Deku says he can barely move after having a few of his ribs and his arm fractured and even broken in different areas, but he's glad everyone is alive. Aizawa looks to All Might, gets up, and leaves. Looking back, he gives All Might a nod and closes the door. Deku and All Might sit in silence for a long time, before Deku eventually breaks it. "Thank you for saving us, All Might. You were really, really cool." All Might eventually responds and goes on to tell Deku that he's the reason that things went well and that no one died. He tells Deku that this event showed him that Deku is the one that should inherit One for All and become All Might's successor. Deku is stunned. Not knowing what to say, he sits in silence with his jaw to the floor. He sits there in silence as All Might continues to explain his history with All for One, One for All, and their never-ending battle. "I know I'm asking a lot of you, young Midoriya, but I need an answer from you. If you say no, that's okay, I'll understand, but if you do, I'll do it," Deku says confidently. "Thank you for considering me. I am so honored." All Might pulls a strand of hair from his head and hands it to Deku. "Well, eat this." Deku would freak out and say no, that's gross, but All Might says it's the only way to pass on the quirk. Unless by blood, but he's not sure if that would even work. Deku would reluctantly take the hair and eat it, downing it with some water. "Well, now what?" Deku would ask. "It won't work just yet. It needs time to process and fuse with your body. While you recover, just be sure not to use your quirk until we meet in a few days. You have a spot we can meet?" All Might asks. Deku says, "I know the perfect place." 3 days would go by and All Might would meet Deku at the same beach Deku trained at. "Wow, you cleaned all of this? Young man, that's very thoughtful of you and very heroic." Deku would share a soft smile, but would stand away from All Might, not knowing what would happen when he finally activates his quirk. Like before, Deku would close his eyes, listening to the waves, the wind, and the birds. As All Might would begin watching on in anticipation, the wind would begin to pick up. And just like the first time when he saw Deku use his Ultra Instinct sign, he would feel an immense pressure, but this time so much more. The air would grow thick with energy and heat and an uncomfortable pressure. "Try to control the flow of energy," All Might would yell. "Don't use all of One for All at once." Sand would begin to rise and spin so fast that All Might, now covering his face, would get little cuts on his arm. Deku would begin to let out a bellow as he works to control the energy within him, but it seems like it's too much. The wind would pick up more and more until suddenly it would all stop. All Might would peek through his fingers and see what looked like Deku, but almost in a godly state. All Might would walk up to Deku slowly and look at him. His eyes clear white, no pupils, and his hair floating elegantly with a beautiful white glow. All Might puts his arm on Deku's shoulder, and Deku's eyes return to normal, revealing a calming silver in his eyes once again. "How do you feel, young Midoriya?" Deku looks up at him, telling him, "I can see everything. I can feel everything." With one step, Deku would seemingly disappear, not able to control the power of One for All yet, accidentally using it at 100%. Deku would then appear right next to All Might once again and tell him thank you for sharing his power with him. Before they leave the beach, All Might would notice that Deku hasn't turned off the form. He would tell Deku to calm his mind, to which Deku would tell him, "I did. Several times, actually. I have honestly never felt more at peace." Deku would take a seat on the sand and All Might would sit next to him. They'd both breathe calmly and try to put Deku in a more relaxed state, hoping that would help. But his hair color wouldn't change back to normal. Deku would arrive home later that night, and Inko, who was cooking dinner, would almost drop the food she made after seeing Deku with seemingly a new hair and eye color. As Inko would investigate him thoroughly and ask, "Is this all because of a girl?" she would ease up when Deku told her that it was actually because of his quirk, and he might not be able to turn it off. Of course, he couldn't tell her about One for All, but he shared what he could. Deku's next day at school was met with shocked looks and a dumbfounded Bakugo, who for some reason was now not looking at Deku with such an evil glare. "What the hell happened to you?" Bakugo would ask. "My quirk did this and now it won't go back." Minato would angrily walk up to Deku and tell him he better change it back quick or else there won't be any women for the rest of them. Deku would turn around as a large group of girls would be standing in the doorway of their class from 1B, 1C, all fawning over him, along with some of the girls in 1A staring over at Deku and blushing him, kind of giving him the eyes. Aizawa would sit up from behind a table noticing Deku but not addressing it. He would go on to tell the class that the UA Sports Festival is still going to go on and it starts next week. There will be pro heroes and agencies watching, so be prepared to show off and do your best. The day of the sports festival finally arrives and the stadium is packed. Thousands of people have come to see the best of what UA has to offer. Bakugo would go on stage and kick things off by telling everyone in the stadium that he's going to crush them and that they better get ready for a show. The crowd wouldn't respond and some would even boo, along with some of the students, but Bakugo doesn't care. He locked eyes with Deku, and when he gets next to him, he tells him that this time, things would be different. The first event was the obstacle race. As all the students head towards the starting line, All Might would quickly pull Deku aside and tell him to do his best, but try to not use 100% of One for All, as that would probably scare all the other kids and it wouldn't be fair. Since he's able to handle all of One for All thanks to his mastered Ultra Instinct form, he needs to learn to show a little restraint. Because so far, Deku can only use 100% of it. His struggle is actually containing the power, not it hurting his body. Deku runs off to the starting line along the other UA High students. Bakugo and Deku lock eyes, and it's here Bakugo noticed that Deku isn't even getting ready or getting into a running stance. Instead, his eyes are closed. He shakes off the weird feeling he's getting from Deku and is getting ready to take off. The horn goes off, and the crowd immediately goes wild as Shoto freezes everyone next to him, except for Deku and Bakugo. Deku hopped over the ice, and Bakugo just started flying. Unlike Shoto and Bakugo, Deku decided to start off by walking, and then picking it up to a jog. In his mind, he repeats, "Go slow," over and over again as he gradually picks up the pace. Eventually, he begins to run. Using 25% of One for All in his mastered Ultra Instinct form, Deku accidentally dashes past Shoto and Bakugo, almost knocking them over. He darts past the 0-pointers, through the minefield, and before he knew it, he was at the finish line. Next up was the cavalry battle, and Deku would stand on the back of Ida, Ochako, and Kaminari. Unfortunately for everyone else, they all began to quickly realize that no matter how many times they reached for the million-point headband on Deku, they couldn't reach him. This leads to Deku's clear win, of course supporting his teammates. Finally, it was time for the one-on-one matches. Deku's first match was going to be with Shinso, but before they started, Ojiro, who had just lost to Shinso before, came to Deku and said, "Hey, whatever Shinso says, don't respond to him." He was able to control my mind, and next thing I knew, I stepped off the ring. So, when their fight starts, Shinso would start by hurling insults and telling Deku it must be nice to be gifted, but Deku wouldn't respond. He would simply appear right next to Shinso, pushing him out of the ring, trying not to hurt him, but of course, being so strong, he sends Shinso pretty far. Up next would be Bakugo versus Shoto, and the match would be explosive. Deku would watch the match alongside the crowd as Bakugo pushes Shoto to his absolute limit, to the point where he even had to use the flames of his abusive father, the number 2 hero, Endeavor. But no matter what Shoto did, Bakugo is ready, blitzing him several times and even resulting to hand-to-hand combat just to show Deku that he's been training harder and harder ever since the day they met. Ultimately, Bakugo would launch a blast that would knock Shoto out of the ring, and as he stands there triumphantly basking in the crowd's cheers, he would look to Deku, lock eyes with him, and point at him. For Deku's final match, he was supposed to go against Ida, but after learning about his older brother's life-threatening injury due to Hero Killer Stain, Ida had to leave immediately, which leaves just one person left, Bakugo. The two boys would make their way to the tournament stage. Cementos and Eraserhead were put on standby due to how strong both boys were known to be. The stadium would suddenly grow quiet, as in anticipation, everyone would be waiting for this explosive fight to begin. Both boys eagerly waiting for Present Mic to yell begin. Bakugo so excited his sweat begins to prematurely explode, while Deku's hair begins to slightly rise. All Might immediately takes note of what's happening and begins to worry that they both might go too far. Just before Present Mic can say begin, a blood-curdling scream can be heard from the other end of the stadium. Everyone would turn to see a large High-End Nomu chewing on the body of a woman it just killed. The image being broadcast over the TV, around Japan, and around the world. The arena would erupt in panic as portals of gray sludge would open around the stadium, out of them jumping 4 more High-End Nomus, one that can fly, one that's ripped, one incredibly tall, and one that can talk. Above the stadium, more portals open as down from them pours 100 smaller Nomus. Kurogiri begins to spawn as portals on the stadium floor while criminals and villains step out. In front of Deku and Bakugo, another portal would open, but much larger this time, as it begins to slowly grow in size. As it slowly begins to grow in size, a black dress shoe steps out, as a maniacal laugh can be heard. Out of the portal walks All For One, Shigaraki, Kurogiri, Stain, and the rest of the League of Villains Vanguard squad, including Dabi, Twice, Mr. Compressed, Toga, Muscular, Moonfish, Magna, Spinner, and Gigantomachia. Bakugo dips over to Deku's side as they stare down the biggest threat to their lives and the entire world. All For One takes a slow step towards the boys. Lifting his hand up, he turns his hand into a mic. Hello, heroes. Screams fill the air as Nomu and criminals clash with heroes, police, and civilians. Blood begins to stain the wall of a once clean stadium. All For One moves his hands as if he's a conductor of an orchestra. This is what music truly sounds like. Amongst the chaos, a shout can be heard from up above. All For One. All Might crashes down in between him and the boys. To his side flies Hawks, Endeavor, Beast Genus, and Edgeshot. Deku looks around and sees absolute mayhem unfolding, but also true heroes at work. Cementos, Midnight, and Eraserhead, along with a large number of other pro heroes, are making quick work of the criminals that came out of Kurogiri's portals, while also helping civilians escape. All For One notices this as well. Being a hero is such tough work, isn't it? He says. Still using his hand like a microphone, he looks up to the helicopter that's broadcasting the UA Sports Festival to everyone in Japan and everyone around the world. It's time to make a change, All For One says. No longer should those with quirks decide to hide and be ruled by governments who don't care about them and make laws that don't even support them. They continue to pay heroes to do jobs that they can't even do, while also making heroes idols that only work for money. All For One stares coldly at All Might. And while those who pretend to be heroes and pretend to save others act as gods. Meanwhile, the high-end Nomus continue to rage on unchecked until Mirako arrives with Mirio, Nejire, and Tamaki. Let's see how your precious heroes handle absolute chaos. Before All For One can utter another word, Deku dashes past all the heroes and lands right under All For One, blitzing him. Squatting down as low as he can under All For One, he clenches his fist, coils his body, and sends a massive uppercut to All For One's jaw. Surprised by this, All For One slightly lifts up into the air as the villains around him slowly turn their heads, not even noticing that Deku was next to them. All Might follows up with the massive United States of Smash right to All For One's stomach, sending him flying into the air over the stadium. Both One For All users moving so fast that the other villains and heroes can't even keep up. The number 2 hero, Endeavor, snapping into focus, decides to take action and attacks Dabi. While he would love to talk to his son that he thought was dead, there's no time. Everyone around him is dying, students, civilians, criminals. All For One, now having been sent up into the air over the stadium due to All Might's punch, looks to his left, looks to his right, and sees All Might and Deku right next to him with a menacing glare in their eyes. He smiles as he attempts to send his tendrils at Deku and All Might, but they spin, dodging them, punching him right down to the ground, creating a massive crater for them to fight in. All For One is now buried in some rubble and spits up blood. Now, let's not be too hasty. The cameras are out, All Might. All For One looks to Deku. Yes, I feel it. You have One For All inside of you. Give me back what is mine. Using a jet quirk to immediately jump to his feet and propulses himself towards Deku. As All For One reaches his arm out towards Deku, extending his hand using a stretch quirk, Deku slips past it, surprising All For One and sending a crushing blow to his ribs. He crashes into the ground once again. All For One laughs once again. That's amazing. You have such an amazing quirk. I need it. All For One begins to combine his quirks in an instant. Air propulsion ×4, damage resistance ×3, regeneration ×3, shock absorption ×5, super strength ×3. He continues and continues as his body and arms grow in size, turning him into a giant monster. I've been waiting for this. I've been watching this entire time. Your classmate Aoyama has been providing such great commentary and advice on how to approach you. You who can't be touched. Back in the stadium, the pro heroes Mount Lady and Ryukyu transform and begin to fight Gigantomachia. He's still too much. More screams can be heard as people pour out of the stadium and into the streets, even falling off the top of the stadium due to Nomu pushing them. Shoto joins his father Endeavor in clashing with Dabi. Massive explosions can be heard as cool and warm breezes reach even Deku and All Might. Half of the stadium crumbles due to Shigaraki while people fall to their death. All For One laughs as he stares at the horror on Deku and All Might's faces. So much for heroes, right? How many will you save today? All Might looks over at Deku, whose eyes are clear, no pupils. His hair begins to rapidly flutter, almost as if every hair fiber was full of rage. But All Might himself also understands his rage and can barely contain it himself. Deku whispers, just him, just one person can be killed to save millions, right, All Might? That's a decision that a hero would make, right, All Might? Tell me that I'll be no better than him if I end his life right here. Tell me that heroes don't kill no matter how bad the person. All Might sits in silence as he clenches his fist so tight that blood begins to pour from his knuckles. He listens to Deku's plea but can't think of a straight answer. All he can hear is the deaths and screams of civilians and heroes alike, even his students. All Might, knowing that he doesn't have much strength left in him and that the embers of One for All are fading too fast to keep up with a now fully maxed out All for One, looks to Deku and tells him that a hero's job is to save people, that a hero's job is not to kill. But All for One is no person. All for One is no villain, no criminal. All for One is the embodiment of death. He puts his hand on Deku's shoulder once again, bringing Deku's pupils back, and tells him this time, we have to save the world no matter the cost. Deku's aura erupts, the ground beneath him breaks. Deku leans forward, still with All Might's hand on his shoulder, and whispers to All Might, thank you, disappearing from All Might's side. With this, All Might leaves the rest to Deku, who charges at All for One at blinding speed, dodging everything All for One has to offer. From lasers to explosives, lightning, fire, wind, blade quirks, bone quirks, gun quirks, light quirks, everything All for One has, he's using, but Deku is dodging it effortlessly. His body understanding the mission that All for One has to be stopped. Finally landing in front of All for One, arriving right in front of All for One, Deku slams his right foot into the ground, coils his body once again, clenches his fist, braces his back just as he watched All Might do against the Nomu, and with a cold stare, he turns his head to All for One. All for One now panicking, stumbling back onto his feet. With a loud bellow, the ground beneath Deku breaks. Deku presses off what's left of the ground as All for One slips towards him, unable to catch himself. For the first time in his life since fighting All Might, has felt true fear. You wouldn't kill me in front of all of these people. You're supposed to be a hero. What kind of hero does this? But no matter what he says, Deku doesn't respond. With a loud bellow, he shouts, 100% planetary smash. He slams his fist into All for One's face, digs and turns his fist as much as he can. All for One screams in pain. The force so strong that villains, heroes, Nomu, everyone in the stadium turn to look in the direction, knowing what's happening. This is not the power of All for One. Deku crunches his body as he slams All for One into the ground, fist crushing his skull as the entirety of Japan shakes. Thanks to this momentary distraction, All Might dashes back into the stadium, cleaning up the rest of the villains. The force was so strong. Alone in the crater, Deku looks up and screams, letting everyone know that the bloodiest day in hero society that the world has ever seen has come to a close.